Dear students, welcome back to my class. So now we are starting with the another topic of this chapter, that is the type specimen calotus. And the previous class we have discussed about the skeletal system, where we have seen what about the skull and the vertebral column of calotus. And now we are continuing the skeletal system with the forelimb as well as the pectoral girdle of calotus versicolor. So today we are discussing about these two structures, that is forelimb and pectoral girdle. In the very beginning class of calotus versicolor, we have discussed the morphology of calotus, where we have seen what is mean by a forelimb and a pectoral girdle. No, not pectoral girdle, forelimbs and hind limbs. Calotus are provided with a pair of forelimbs and a pair of hind limbs. This is generally used for walking, crawling, jumping and all these purposes, right? So now we are starting with the detailed morphology of forelimb. So let's move to the detail of the structural analysis of forelimb. Forelimb has been divided into three distinct regions, that is upper arm, forearm and manus. That is, this is upper arm, this is the forearm and this is the manus or hand region. Okay. Then this upper arm is generally supported by a short and stout bone that is called the humerus. Here you can see that this whole structure is called the humerus. For more detail, you can see that this is the humerus, and this humerus consists of two different regions, an ossified region and unossified region. Ossified means, yes, a bony part that is generally called as shaft. Okay, and an unossified part means it is not a bony structure. Okay, that is called epiphysis, and this epiphysis you can see at the proximities in the proximal region as well as in the distal region that we will discuss later. So this is the humerus, or this is the first part of the forelimb, that is the upper arm is supported by a bony structure that is called the humerus bone. The humerus bone generally consists of two distinct regions, an ossified region called a shaft and an unossified region called a epiphysis. Here epiphysis you can see here in this proximal region as well as in the distal region. Then come to the shaft. Shaft is the bony part. This shaft generally consists of prominent ridges. This prominent ridge is termed as deltoid ridge. Okay, so this is a part of shaft, that is the ossified part of humerus, generally consisting of a prominent ridge that is called a deltoid ridge. Then again comes to the humerus. If you are concentrating on the humerus generally consists, I told you that it has a proximal part and a distal part. The proximal rounded extremity of this humerus is called a head. Okay, this is called the head of humerus. Here, this is the head. Okay, and in the distal region, it generally consisting of a pulley-like structure that is called the trochlea. This is the trochlear region. Okay, so the proximal region forms the head and the distal region forms the trochlea. This trochlea generally consists of two distinct regions, that is radial epicondyle and an ulnar epicondyle. These two regions are named as radial epicondyle and ulnar epicondyle because it is generally faces with the radius as well as the ulnus bone of the forearm. So this is actually the part of upper arm. Okay, upper arm is generally followed by the forearm. This is the forearm that we will discuss in the next slide. This forearm consisting of two bones, that is radius and ulna. These two bones are generally articulating with this radial epicondyle and ulnar epicondyle of humerus. Okay, so this is the trochlear region. The trochlear region consisting of a radial epicondyle and an ulnar epicondyle. These are named for articulating radius as well as the ulnar bone of which part? Forearm. So that's all about the upper arm. The upper arm is the for just we are just making an concluding of this upper arm. Upper arm is the first part of this forelimb, and this is supported by a bone called the humerus bone. The humerus bone is generally consisting of an ossified shaft and an unossified epiphysis at two different proximities. Then come to the humerus. The humerus has an round prominence at the anterior end, that is called head, and it is also has a pulley-like structure on the distal region, that is called a trochlea. This trochlea possesses two protuberances, that is radial epicondyle and ulnar epicondyle, for articulating with the radius as well as the ulna of forearm. Okay, so I hope you understood what is meant by forearm, upper arm. Then comes the next part, that is called the forearm. Here you can see that this is the humerus, and this humerus is generally continuing with the forearm. This forearm is supported by two slender bones, that is called a radius and ulna. Okay, we have seen that a radial condyle and epicondyle in the humerus part. This radius as well as the ulna is communicating with this radial as well as in the ulnar epicondyle. Okay, then in this forearm you can see another structure, that is called the olecranian process. Olecranian process is nothing but the proximal end of this ulna bone. The ulna is generally found on the lower side. This ulna bone, the anterior or the proximal end of this ulna bone produced into an upwardly directed process. This upwardly directed process is called the olecranian process or olecranian process. Then, in addition with this olecranian process, this lower end of this radius is also forms another process, that is called a styloid process. You can see in this region, that is styloid process. So at the proximal end there will be a olecranian process, and at the distal end you can see the styloid process. So that's all about the forearm. Then comes to the next region, that is called the carpus. Or carpus, we can see that the wrist region. The carpus region is supported by small 10 bones. Okay, so these are the carpal region. That is just before the fingers, you can see the carpus. This is supported by 10 bones. And this carpus generally consisting of numerous units or bones, that is called a carpal bones. And this carpal bones, the 10 carpal bones are generally arranged as 3 distinct rows. That is a proximal row, a mesial row, and a distal row. This proximal row generally consisting of 3 different carpals, that is called the radial, then they are called the radial, then called the intermedium. Intermediate is this is the radial bone, this is the intermedial, and there is an ulnar bone. These 3 bones generally constitute the proximal row. Then it is followed by the another row, that is called mesial row. This mesial row consists only a single carpal, that is called a central. Here you can see it is generally present in this region. Okay, then which is followed by a distal row. That is distal row generally consisting of 5 carpals. 5 carpals are generally you can see here in this region. It is generally seen as a black color, but here actually 5 different carpals are present. And in addition to this carpals, there is an accessory bone is present, that is called a pisiform. Pisiform bone. So pisiform bone is the region which is generally found in the distal row of carpus. Okay, so these 3 rows of bones generally constituting 10 bones, and these 10 bones are generally supporting the carpus or the wrist region of Pilotus versicolor. So the upper arm is supported by humerus, forearm is supported by radius and ulna, and the carpal is supported by these 10 bones. Then comes the next region, that is called the palm region. So this carpal region, carpus is over, then we are coming into the palm region. This is the palm region. We know that the palm region is generally supported by fingers. It is supported by 5 metacarpals. Okay, and the digits are generally supported by metacarpals. These are metacarpals. Here you can see that as it is provided with the 5 digits, it is supported by 5 metacarpals. Here you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 metacarpals are seen, and these metacarpals are followed by the fingers. And here also 5 fingers are present, and these 5 fingers are generally supported by a bony small bones that is called phalanges. And the phalangeal formula in Calotes versicolor, which is found in the forelimb, is 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, which means the first digit. This is the first digit, and this first digit is supported by 2 phalanges. Okay, 1 and 2. The second one is supported by 3. That is 1, 2, 3. Then the third one, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Then fourth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the last one, it is supported by 1, 2, 3 bones. So the 5 fingers are generally supported by 2 phalanges in first bone, in first finger, then 3 by second, 4 by third, 5 by 4, and 3 by fifth digit. So this is the bony structure which is generally supporting the palm region. Okay, so that's all about the forelimb of Calotes versicolor. Then comes the pectoral girdle. The pectoral girdle is a structure. This is the pectoral girdle, and this structure is generally associated with supporting this forelimbs. How these forelimbs are held in position in its body by means of this particular structure. That is called a pectoral girdle. And this, if we are coming into the structural analysis, you can see that the pectoral girdle consisting of a T-shaped bone. This is a T-shaped bone that is called the interclavicle. And there is another structure called a clavicle. Clavicle means into this interclavicle, on either side of the interclavicle, you can see that the 2 bones are generally merging in the center. This is called a clavicle. This clavicle is the bone which is generally articulating into the each side of the interclavicle, or it moves into the 2 sides of the limb. We know that in this region one forelimb is attached, and in this region another forelimb is attached. So into this 2 limbs, this particular clavicle is generally moving. Then come to the detailed analysis. It consisting of 2 distinct halves, this pectoral girdle, and this each half consisting of 3 bones. That is called a coracoid. This is a coracoid bone. Then it contains a scapula bone. This is called the scapula. This is coracoid, and then this is scapula. And in addition to this, there is another structure that is called the suprascapula. Supracapsula. So this is coracoid, this is scapula, and this is supracapsula. The same structure you can see here also. This is coracoid, this is scapula, and this is suprascapula. Okay, and at the junction between this coracoid and this coracoid as well as in the scapula, you can see there is a opening that is called the glenoid cavity. This is called the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity, and into this glenoid cavity, the head of the humerus is getting attached. We know that this particular structure is generally concerned with supporting the forelimb and hind limb. So the first part of the forelimb is humerus. The humerus is attached into this glenoid cavity. Okay, and coracoid. When come to the coracoid process, this coracoid process contains a pair of wide opening, that is called a coracoid fenestra. One pair here in left side and another pair in the right side. This is called a coracoid fenestra. This coracoid fenestra will divide the coracoid into anterior precoraid and posterior choroid. So this is the whole structure is the choroid. So this coracoid fenestra will divide this coracoid into anterior precoraid and posterior coracoid bone. Then this coracoid as well as in the interclavicular articulates with the sternum only. So this 2 bones, that is the coracoid fenestra as well as in the interclavicles, it will binds with the sternum. Sternum is the chest bone that we have seen in the previous class. It will communicate with the chest bone of its body. So that's all about the pectoral girdle as well as in the forelimb of Calotes versicolor. I hope you understood. If you have any doubt, please do in the comment section. Thank you.